Welcome to ARY Coins News, where 5 Jefferson nickels prove that 5 cents can become a fortune. In 2026, the most valuable examples include the 1964, reaching about $35,250, the 1967 at $33,600, the rare 1987D at $33,600, the extraordinary 1974 SMS at $32,900, and the 1981D at $32,900 in major auction records. These aren't million-dollar coins, but they are 5-cent pieces worth tens of thousands of dollars. Stay with us, because these tiny treasures could be hiding an incredible story. Let's get started with first coin. If you have a 1964 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, do not spend it or dismiss it as an ordinary 5-cent coin just yet. This classic American nickel features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's historic Virginia home, on the reverse. The date is especially interesting to collectors because 1964 was a major production year for Jefferson nickels, and examples can still be found in circulation today. But the important question is not simply whether your coin has no mint mark. The real question is its condition, quality, strike, surface preservation, and whether it has an unusual characteristic that separates it from ordinary examples. A 1964 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Because Philadelphia traditionally did not place a mint mark on these nickels, the absence of a mint mark by itself does not mean the coin is a rare error or an exceptionally valuable rarity. This is one of the most important facts for anyone searching for the value of a 1964 Jefferson nickel. Many online videos and listings describe every no-mint mark example as rare, but collectors and professional numismatists look much more closely at the actual condition and characteristics of the individual coin. The Jefferson nickel was introduced during the early 1940s, replacing the Buffalo nickel and honoring Thomas Jefferson. The reverse design shows Monticello, Jefferson's plantation and home, with the words 5 cents and United States of America around the building. The 1964 issue belongs to the classic Jefferson nickel series and is particularly recognizable to collectors because of the huge number of nickels produced during that period. Now let us talk about the condition described as fine, because this is where many people misunderstand coin values. A fine circulated coin has clearly experienced wear from everyday use, but important design details remain visible. On a fine 1964 Jefferson nickel, Jefferson's portrait will normally show noticeable wear, while the hair, cheek, jaw, and other raised areas may have lost some detail. On the reverse, Monticello and the surrounding lettering can also show wear from circulation. A coin in this condition is generally worth far less than a sharply preserved, uncirculated example. The phrase "no mint mark" is also important to understand correctly. On a 1964 Jefferson nickel, no mint mark normally indicates Philadelphia production. It does not automatically indicate an error. If you see a 1964 nickel with a small letter mint mark, that can identify a different mint, while a completely normal Philadelphia example will have no mint letter beneath the date. Before assuming that a missing mint mark makes the coin valuable, compare the coin with authenticated examples and verify that you are looking at the correct location. Collectors become much more interested when a 1964 Jefferson nickel has exceptional preservation. This is where the difference between a circulated fine coin and a mint state coin can become significant. Mint state means the coin was never circulated in the ordinary sense, although the exact grade can vary considerably. A mint state coin may have attractive original luster, strong details, clean surfaces, and minimal contact marks. Two coins with exactly the same date can therefore have dramatically different market values. When you hear someone describe a 1964 Jefferson nickel as MS, remember that MS is not a single grade. It is a category covering different numerical grades of uncirculated condition. The higher the grade and the better the eye appeal, the more attention the coin can receive from serious collectors. A coin that looks brilliant to the naked eye is not automatically a high-grade mint state example. Professional grading examines strike quality, luster, marks, color, preservation, and other characteristics. This is also why auction results need to be interpreted carefully. A coin that sold for a strong price at auction was almost certainly a particular certified example with characteristics that justified that result. That does not mean every 1964 Jefferson nickel is worth the same amount. Auction prices represent the actual coin that changed hands, not a guaranteed price for every coin carrying the same date. If you are searching for a 1964 Jefferson nickel value in the current numismatic market, pay attention to the difference between an asking price and a sold price. An online seller can list an ordinary nickel for a very high amount, but a listing price does not prove that anyone is willing to pay that amount. A completed auction or documented sale is much more useful because it shows what a buyer actually paid for a comparable coin. This is especially important in the current market because rare coin headlines can make ordinary coins appear much more valuable than they really are. Search results may show spectacular prices for certified mint state or exceptional examples, while a circulated fine example may have only modest collector value. The safest approach is to identify the exact condition before making any conclusion about value. The surfaces of your coin should also be examined carefully. Look for scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, heavy cleaning, and unusual marks. Cleaning can reduce collector appeal even when the coin looks bright and shiny. Original surfaces and natural luster are usually more desirable than an artificially polished appearance. A coin that has been cleaned may not receive the same treatment as a comparable example with original surfaces. The reverse deserves special attention as well. The steps of Monticello are an area that collectors often examine when evaluating Jefferson nickels. Strongly defined steps can contribute to the desirability of certain high-grade examples, although the complete evaluation involves much more than simply counting visible steps. Strike strength, marks, luster, and overall preservation all matter. Another reason to examine your 1964 nickel carefully is the possibility of varieties or unusual characteristics. Not every unusual-looking mark is an error. Damage from circulation, machines, tools, chemicals, or other objects can create marks that look dramatic but have little numismatic value. Genuine mint errors and recognized varieties should be authenticated before a collector assumes that they are valuable. If your coin is a normal circulated fine example with no mint mark, it should not automatically be described as a rare million-dollar discovery or a guaranteed high-value coin. The honest way to present its value is to say that its condition and exact characteristics determine its market appeal. The strongest values generally belong to exceptional, certified, or otherwise distinctive examples rather than ordinary circulated pieces. Now consider the possibility that you have a much better preserved coin. If your 1964 Jefferson nickel has full original luster, sharp details, clean surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation, it could be worth considerably more than a worn example. That is when professional grading can become worthwhile, especially if the coin appears to have the potential for a high mint state grade. Before sending any coin for grading, however, compare it with certified examples and consider the grading fees, shipping costs, insurance, and the realistic market value of the coin. Professional certification can be useful when a coin has genuine potential, but not every old nickel benefits financially from being submitted. The term valuable can mean different things in the coin market. A coin may have a small premium above face value, a meaningful collector premium, or a substantial auction value if it is an exceptional example. The most valuable examples are usually the ones that combine rarity, condition, demand, and documented market performance. Age alone does not guarantee rarity, and a coin being more than half a century old does not automatically make it expensive. So if you found a 1964 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark in circulation, the discovery is certainly interesting. The coin represents an important period in American coinage and is part of a series that remains popular with collectors. But the no mint mark feature is normal for Philadelphia examples from this period, so the real treasure hunt begins with condition, varieties, errors, and authentication. For anyone researching this coin in the 2026 numismatic market, the best strategy is to search specifically for completed sales of comparable coins. Look for the same date, the same mint identification, the same condition, and preferably the same certification level. Do not compare a fine circulated nickel with a spectacular high-grade mint state auction record and assume they have the same value. If you have a coin that you believe is a particularly valuable mint state example, clear photographs can make the first evaluation much easier. Photograph the obverse, reverse, date, area around the mint mark location, edge, and any unusual feature under good lighting. Avoid cleaning or polishing the coin before having it evaluated, because altering the original surface can hurt its desirability. The biggest lesson with the 1964 Jefferson nickel is simple. Do not judge the coin only by the date or by the absence of a mint mark. Look at the entire coin. Examine its condition, preservation, strike, surface quality, varieties, and any possible mint error. Then compare it with genuine sold auction records rather than inflated asking prices. And if you have found a 1964 Jefferson nickel that appears unusually sharp, bright, and well preserved, do not assume that it is just another old nickel. Set it aside carefully, handle it by the edges, and have it compared with professionally graded examples. A genuinely exceptional coin can attract much more collector attention than an ordinary circulated example. The 1964 Jefferson nickel remains an interesting piece for both beginners and experienced collectors. Its connection to Thomas Jefferson and Monticello, its Philadelphia origin when no mint mark is present, and the wide difference between circulated and mint state condition make it a fascinating coin to investigate. The key is to separate genuine numismatic evidence from exaggerated claims, so before you spend that old Jefferson nickel, take another close look. Check the date, examine the surfaces, study Monticello on the reverse, evaluate the amount of wear, and investigate whether the coin has a recognized variety or genuine mint error. Most importantly, remember that real value comes from what collectors actually pay for comparable coins, not simply from what someone claims a coin could be worth. If this 1964 Jefferson nickel is sitting in your collection right now, tell us what condition it appears to be, whether it has original luster, and whether you notice anything unusual about the design or surfaces. Your coin could be an ordinary circulated example, a collectible high-grade piece, or something that deserves closer examination. Keep searching, keep learning, and always verify auction results before believing a spectacular price claim. Subscribe for more coin collecting discoveries, Jefferson nickel values, rare coin research, auction history, mint state examples, and numismatic market updates. There are millions of old coins still being examined, and sometimes the most interesting discovery begins with a coin that looks like nothing more than 5 cents. Coin number 2. Have you ever found an old 5-cent coin and wondered whether that ordinary-looking nickel could actually be worth much more than 5 cents? Today, we are taking a close look at the 1967 Jefferson nickel, especially the Philadelphia issue with no mint mark, and we are going to examine its history, condition, Monticello design, possible collector value, minting background, and the prices that coins from this year have actually brought in the market. Before we get into the exciting possibilities, there is one very important fact to understand. A 1967 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is not automatically rare simply because there is no letter beside Monticello. In fact, 1967 nickels were produced at Philadelphia without a mint mark, and more than 107 million were struck. The 1967 Jefferson nickel is a fascinating coin because it comes from an unusual period in United States coinage. During the middle of the 1960s, the United States Mint temporarily stopped using mint marks on several denominations. The goal was partly connected to concerns about coin shortages and collecting activity, so a missing mint mark on a coin from this era should not immediately be interpreted as a minting error. That is especially important when examining the 1967 Jefferson nickel. The absence of a mint mark can be completely normal for this issue, rather than evidence that the coin was accidentally struck without its identifying letter. On the front of the coin is the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, facing left. The design was created by Felix Schlag and became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. Around the portrait, you can see the inscriptions United States of America, in God We Trust, and the date 1967. Even when a coin has heavy circulation, these major design elements can usually still be identified, although wear can dramatically affect the coin's collectible grade and therefore its market value. Turn the coin over and you will see one of the most important features for Jefferson nickel collectors: Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. The reverse includes the inscriptions EPLUOBUSUNUM, United States of America, 5 cents, and MONTICLLO. On Jefferson nickels from this period, collectors often pay close attention to the architectural details of Monticello, including the steps and sharpness of the building. A strong, well-defined strike can make a major difference when a high-grade example is being evaluated. Now let's talk about the phrase that catches the attention of many collectors: no mint mark. On a 1967 Jefferson nickel, no mint mark generally means Philadelphia, and that is normal for the regular issue. This is where many online videos and listings can become misleading. A seller may describe a no mint mark 1967 nickel as extremely rare simply because it lacks a letter, but the missing letter by itself does not make this date a rare error. The correct approach is to examine the entire coin, including its strike, surfaces, luster, wear, possible errors, and overall condition. There is another fascinating part of the 1967 story. In addition to regular circulation strikes, the United States Mint produced special mint set coins during this era. These special mint set, or SMS, coins can have much sharper details and more attractive surfaces than ordinary circulated examples. They were not traditional proof coins, and collectors need to distinguish an SMS example from an ordinary business strike nickel. This distinction can become extremely important when discussing the highest values associated with the 1967 Jefferson nickel. So what happens if your 1967 nickel is dirty, scratched, dark, or heavily circulated? In most cases, the coin will not suddenly become valuable because of its age. A heavily worn example can remain close to face value, although collectors may still want attractive or unusual specimens. Current market listings show ordinary circulated 1967 Philadelphia nickels selling around the dollar range or somewhat higher in individual online transactions, while uncirculated examples can bring several dollars depending on quality and buyer demand. This is why condition is so important. In the coin market, collectors commonly use grades ranging from heavily circulated conditions through about uncirculated and into mint state. Once a coin reaches the mint state category, the difference between an average example and an exceptionally preserved example can become enormous. A coin that looks simply shiny to the naked eye may still have contact marks, weak details, or other imperfections that prevent it from reaching a top grade. If your 1967 Jefferson nickel is dirty, resist the temptation to clean it aggressively. This is one of the biggest mistakes inexperienced collectors make. Scrubbing, polishing, chemicals, or abrasive materials can permanently damage the original surface. A coin that appears unattractive but retains its original surfaces can sometimes be more desirable to a serious collector than a coin that has been cleaned to look artificially bright. If you believe your coin could be valuable, handling it carefully and seeking professional numismatic advice is generally safer than trying to make it shine. Now let's move into the part that many viewers are waiting for: the big dollar possibilities. Recent 2026 sales show that high-grade 1967 Jefferson nickels can command substantially more than ordinary circulated examples. For instance, a 1967 SMS Jefferson nickel-graded MS66 Deep Cameo by PCGS sold for $109 in a recent Heritage Auctions transaction. Other MS66 examples have appeared in the market at prices ranging from several dozen dollars upward, depending on the specific variety, certification, quality, and buyer demand. But here is the critical point. That does not mean every 1967 nickel is a $100 coin. The spectacular prices belong to particular high-grade examples, especially coins with exceptional preservation and desirable characteristics. The ordinary 1967 nickel found in a drawer, coin jar, or pocket is usually worth dramatically less. In fact, current market records include circulated examples around the $1 to $2 level, while some brilliant uncirculated pieces have sold for only a few dollars. The highest grade SMS coins are where the numbers can become much more interesting. Current graysheet information lists very high retail figures for certain certified 1967 SMS deep cameo grades, while also showing recent auction activity. This demonstrates an important rule of the numismatic market. An estimated retail value is not the same thing as a guaranteed auction price. The actual amount a coin brings depends on certification, population, eye appeal, strike quality, surface preservation, auction timing, and the bidders competing for that particular coin. So if you have a 1967 Jefferson nickel, what should you look for before deciding that it is ordinary? Start with the date and confirm that it really is 1967. Then inspect both sides under good lighting. Look closely at Jefferson's hair, facial details, lettering, and the overall sharpness of the strike. On the reverse, examine Monticello and its architectural details. Look for strong luster, minimal contact marks, original surfaces, and unusually sharp detail. Also inspect the coin for genuine mint errors or varieties rather than assuming that normal characteristics are errors. The difference between a regular circulation strike and a special mint set example can be particularly important. A 1967 SMS coin may have a noticeably sharper appearance, stronger detail, and better surfaces than a typical coin that spent years circulating. However, simply finding a shiny 1967 nickel does not prove that it came from a special mint set. Identification should be based on the characteristics of the strike and surfaces, ideally with comparison to authenticated examples. Another important warning concerns internet auction headlines. You may see claims such as 1967 Jefferson nickel worth thousands or no mint mark rare error worth huge money. These statements can attract attention, but they should always be checked against actual sold records. A coin listed for an enormous asking price is not evidence that anyone paid that amount. Sold auction records are much more useful because they show what a buyer actually paid under real market conditions. For example, recent sold listings show ordinary 1967 Philadelphia Jefferson nickels changing hands for modest amounts, while certified high-grade and SMS examples can bring considerably more. One recent MS66 deep cameo example sold for $109, while other certified high-grade examples have sold for dozens of dollars. Price charting this enormous difference is exactly why condition and attribution matter more than simply knowing the year. What about a dirty 1967 nickel? If the coin is genuinely dirty and heavily worn, don't assume that dirt is evidence of rarity. Dirt is not a valuable variety, where is not a mint error. A missing mint mark is not automatically an error on this particular date. The value comes from the combination of date, type, condition, strike, originality, rarity, and actual collector demand. The metal composition also helps explain why most 1967 Jefferson nickels do not have a huge intrinsic value. The coin contains 75% copper and 25% nickel and weighs 5 grams. Its original denomination was 5 cents, and millions of regular examples entered circulation. USA Coin Book, that means the typical circulated specimen, is not a rare treasure simply because it has survived for decades. However, age can still make a coin interesting. A 1967 nickel is now approaching 6 decades old, and it represents a fascinating chapter in United States mint history. Collectors who build Jefferson nickel sets may want examples from this year, and collectors specializing in SMS coins may specifically search for superior pieces. A coin does not have to be worth thousands of dollars to be historically interesting or collectible. If your coin appears to be in mint state, do not clean it, scratch it, or attempt to improve its appearance. Instead, compare it with authenticated examples and consider whether professional grading would make sense. Certification can be particularly useful when the potential difference between an ordinary coin and a high-grade example is substantial. But grading fees should be considered carefully because submitting a common low-value coin may cost more than the coin is worth. The current 2026 market gives us a useful lesson. A regular 1967 Jefferson nickel can be worth around face value to a small premium depending on condition, while attractive uncirculated examples may bring several dollars. Certified high-grade pieces can reach the tens of dollars, and exceptional SMS coins can reach into the hundreds. Current sales and price guides demonstrate that the most valuable examples are the exceptions, not the rule. Oh, could your 1967 Jefferson nickel be valuable? Yes, it could be worth more than 5 cents, particularly if it has outstanding preservation, an exceptional strike, a desirable SMS characteristic, a genuine mint error, or another feature that collectors actively pursue. But if it is simply a normal circulated Philadelphia nickel with no mint mark, the missing letter itself is not enough to make it rare. The best thing you can do is slow down and inspect the coin carefully. Look at the date, the portrait, Monticello, the lettering, the surfaces, and the overall condition. Compare the coin with reliable sold examples rather than sensational asking prices. If the coin appears unusually sharp and well preserved, especially if it may be an SMS specimen, that is when professional evaluation becomes more interesting. And remember, the coin market changes. Prices mentioned in this video are based on available market information and reported sales around 2026, not a promise of what any particular coin will sell for in the future. The final value depends on the exact coin, its grade, certification, eye appeal, and the market at the moment it is offered. Coin number 3. Look at the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, and we are going to examine its circulation condition, the famous D mint mark, mint state examples, full steps details, auction history, and what collectors may realistically pay for this coin in the numismatic market in 2026. The 1987 D. Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, and the D mint mark identifies its Denver origin. The coin has the standard Jefferson nickel composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighs 5 grams, and measures about 21.2 millimeters across. More than 410 million examples were produced, so this is not a low mintage coin in the traditional sense. That is one of the most important facts to understand before assuming that every 1987 D nickel is a rare coin. So why does the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel attract attention from collectors? The answer is condition. A normal circulated example is generally worth around its 5-cent face value, and even ordinary uncirculated pieces may bring only a modest premium. Current reference information shows that circulated examples are generally valued at face value, while uncirculated examples can be worth a few dollars depending on grade and quality. In other words, finding a 1987 D nickel does not automatically mean you have discovered a valuable treasure. But the story becomes much more interesting when we move into the highest mint state grades. MS means mint state, a grading category used for coins that have not circulated in the normal sense. A coin graded MS65 can look dramatically better than a typical pocket change example, with strong luster, minimal contact marks, and attractive surfaces. As the grade moves higher, the number of coins that qualify can become much smaller, and that is where the market can begin paying significantly more attention. There is another feature that Jefferson nickel collectors watch very closely: full steps. On the reverse of the coin, Monticello has steps leading up to the building. During production, those steps were often weakened or obscured by contact and striking characteristics. A sharply struck coin showing the individual steps clearly can receive a full steps designation from a grading service. This distinction can make an enormous difference in collector demand, especially at the highest grades. PCGS specifically notes that the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel is scarce in MS66 with full steps, while MS67 full steps examples are rare despite the enormous original mintage. This is the key lesson for anyone searching through circulation. Do not look only at the date and the D mint mark, look at the overall condition. Check Jefferson's portrait for contact marks and scratches. Examine the fields around the portrait. Look at the lettering and the rim. Then turn the coin over and inspect Monticello carefully. The steps are especially important. A coin that looks bright and attractive at first glance may still have enough marks or strike weakness to prevent it from reaching a premium grade. The auction history gives us an even better idea of how dramatic the difference can be. Great Collections reports that it has sold numerous 1987 D. Jefferson nickels over the years, with prices ranging from modest amounts for low-grade examples to more than $1,000 for an exceptional certified coin. One reported sale was a PCGS MS-67 full steps example that sold for about $1,135. Other published auction information shows that the absolute top end can be even more surprising. Gainesville Coins lists an auction record of $2,291.25 for a 1987 D. Jefferson nickel-graded MS-67. For the full steps variety, it lists an auction record of $504 for an MS-67 full steps example. These figures demonstrate why condition, certification, strike quality, and the exact variety matters so much when discussing the potential value of this modern Jefferson nickel. However, there is an important warning here. An auction record is not the same thing as the normal value of every coin from the same year and mint. A spectacular certified specimen can bring a premium that an ordinary circulated nickel could never approach. You should never look at a headline auction price and assume that your pocket change coin is automatically worth the same amount. The grade, surface quality, strike, full steps designation, eye appeal, certification, and actual buyer demand all matter. For a circulated 1987 D. Jefferson nickel, the realistic situation is very different. If the coin has been used in commerce, shows scratches, where on Jefferson's hair and cheek, flattened details, rim marks, or general discoloration from circulation, it will normally remain a face value coin. Some attractive uncirculated examples can have a small premium, but the dramatic prices belong to the upper end of the grading scale rather than normal circulation pieces. Now imagine finding a 1987 D nickel that has never really been exposed to circulation. The surfaces are bright, the original mint luster is still present, Jefferson's portrait is sharply defined, and the reverse has strong detail. You turn the coin over and discover that the Monticello steps are unusually complete. Suddenly, the coin becomes much more interesting to a serious collector. That is the type of coin that may deserve professional evaluation rather than simply being spent. If you believe you have an exceptional example, resist the temptation to clean it. This is extremely important. Never polish a potentially valuable coin just because you want it to look brighter. Cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural surfaces, or other signs of alteration that can reduce collector appeal and potentially hurt the coin's market value. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces, even when those surfaces are not perfectly brilliant. Professional certification can also become important when a coin appears to be at the high end of the grading scale. A grading company can authenticate and grade the coin, and a certified grade gives buyers a standardized way to compare the specimen with other coins. For a common modern nickel, grading fees may not make economic sense, but for a truly exceptional MS example with strong full steps, certification can be worth considering because the potential market difference between ordinary and elite quality can be substantial. The 1987 D. Jefferson nickel is also a great reminder that rarity is not always about how many coins were originally produced. More than 410 million were struck, which sounds enormous, and it is. But the number of coins surviving in truly elite condition with strong strikes and desirable full steps characteristics can be much smaller. This is known as condition rarity. A coin can be common in circulated grades while becoming scarce in the finest grades. That is exactly the type of situation collectors watch for with the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel. When searching your change, use good lighting and avoid damaging the coin. Hold the nickel by its edges rather than touching the surfaces unnecessarily. Compare the appearance of the coin with other Jefferson nickels from the same period. Look for original luster, clean fields, sharp lettering, and especially strong detail on Monticello. Remember that a shiny coin is not automatically a high-grade coin. A coin can have strong luster while still carrying numerous contact marks, and those marks can have a major effect on the final grade. Another important point is that the D mint mark alone does not make this coin rare. The Denver mint mark simply tells us where the coin was produced. What makes a high-grade 1987 D potentially interesting is the combination of grade, strike quality, surface preservation, and collector demand. If someone tells you that every 1987 D nickel with a D mint mark is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, that claim should be treated with caution. The same caution applies to internet videos and social media posts that advertise enormous values for ordinary coins. A genuine auction result can be useful, but you need to compare the exact coin. Was it certified? What was the grade? Did it have full steps? Was it an exceptional population rarity? Was the price an actual completed sale rather than an asking price? These questions can completely change the meaning of a reported value. As of the 2026 market information available for this coin, the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel remains a fascinating example of how modern U.S. coins can develop a specialized collector market. The typical circulated coin is not a major rarity, but exceptional mint state examples can command dramatically higher prices. Published references currently show ordinary uncirculated values in the low dollar range, while the finest auction results reach into the hundreds or even over $2,000, depending on the exact coin and grade. So if you have a 1987 D. Jefferson nickel sitting in a jar, coin roll, old collection, or pocket change box, take another look before spending it. Check the date, confirm the D-mint mark, examine the surfaces, inspect Jefferson's portrait, and turn the coin over to study Monticello and its steps. If the coin is heavily circulated, it is probably just a 5-cent nickel. But if you discover an unusually clean, sharply struck, nearly flawless specimen with exceptional full steps detail, you may have something worth researching further. The most exciting part of coin collecting is that valuable discoveries do not always begin with an obviously ancient coin. Sometimes they begin with a modern-looking piece that most people would completely ignore. The 1987 D. Jefferson nickel is a perfect example. Its huge mintage means that ordinary pieces are common, but its finest condition examples show how dramatically value can change when preservation and strike quality reach the highest levels. Coin number 4. What if an ordinary-looking Jefferson nickel from 1974 could be worth far more than its 5-cent face value? In today's coin collecting market, the answer depends heavily on condition, strike quality, preservation, and especially whether the coin has exceptional full steps detail on Monticello. This is why collectors should never judge a coin only by its age or by the fact that it has no mint mark. The 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and the absence of a mint mark is normal for this issue rather than automatically being a rare minting error. More than 600 million of these Philadelphia nickels were produced, so an ordinary circulated example is generally not a rare coin. Now, here is where the story becomes much more interesting. A 1974 Jefferson nickel in heavily circulated condition may be worth little more than face value, while a sharply struck, beautifully preserved mint state example can attract significantly more attention from collectors. Current market information shows that ordinary examples remain relatively inexpensive, but high-grade pieces with outstanding preservation and strong detail can move into a completely different category. That difference is what makes condition so important when evaluating this coin. A coin that looks simply good to the naked eye is not necessarily a high-grade coin in the professional numismatic sense. When examining your 1974 nickel, start with the obverse, the side showing Thomas Jefferson. Look carefully at Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, the date, and the overall surface. You want to look for scratches, contact marks, discoloration, corrosion, cleaning, and signs of circulation. A coin can have attractive color, but still have substantial wear. Likewise, a bright-looking nickel is not automatically valuable. Professional collectors pay close attention to the quality of the original surfaces and the amount of damage the coin has received since leaving the mint. Next, turn the coin over to the reverse and study Monticello. This is one of the most important areas to examine on a Jefferson nickel. The steps beneath Monticello can become extremely important on premium examples because collectors look for sharp, uninterrupted step detail. When the steps are exceptionally clear, the coin may qualify for a full steps designation depending on the grading service and the exact quality of the strike. This kind of detail can dramatically separate an ordinary uncirculated nickel from a much more desirable high-end example. There is another important point that collectors should understand before becoming excited about a missing mint mark. On the 1974 Philadelphia Jefferson nickel, no mint mark is exactly what you should expect. it does not mean that the coin is automatically a no-mint mark error. In fact, the Philadelphia issue is specifically catalogued as having no mint mark. So if you have a 1974 nickel with no mint mark, that feature alone does not make the coin rare. The real question is whether the coin has exceptional condition, an unusual error or variety, or extraordinary strike quality. The composition is also worth mentioning. The 1974 Jefferson nickel is made from the traditional copper-nickel alloy used for circulating Jefferson nickels of the period, consisting of copper and nickel rather than silver. The coin weighs 5 grams and measures about 21.2 millimeters across. That means you should not expect a large bullion premium simply because the coin is old. Its potential collector value comes primarily from numismatic characteristics such as grade, strike, rarity, and documented market demand. So what is a 1974 Jefferson nickel actually worth in the current market? For an ordinary circulated example, expectations should remain modest. Current reference information places circulated examples around face value to a small premium depending on condition and market. One current coin value source lists the Philadelphia issue at approximately 30 cents to several dollars or more in uncirculated grades, while recent completed sale data also shows that some attractive uncirculated examples have sold for amounts ranging from several dollars into the tens of dollars. But now we reach the part that collectors and viewers are usually most interested in, the high-grade auction market. The Professional Coin Grading Service auction database records a 1974 Jefferson nickel-graded PCGS MS67 full steps with an auction record of $4,230. That coin sold through Legend Rare Coin Auctions in December of 2020. This is an important verified auction result because it represents an actual reported auction sale rather than an internet asking price. That $4,000 plus result should not be interpreted as saying every 1974 nickel is worth thousands of dollars. Quite the opposite. The auction record demonstrates how extreme the difference can be between an ordinary example and an exceptionally rare high-grade specimen. A coin graded MS67 full steps is in a completely different collecting category from a worn nickel that has spent decades in circulation. The high auction price is connected to the combination of professional grade, exceptional preservation, strike quality, and collector competition. This is also why you should be careful when you see videos or online listings claiming that every 1974 nickel with no mint mark is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. An asking price is not the same thing as a completed sale. Someone can list an ordinary nickel online for an enormous amount of money, but that does not prove collectors are actually paying that amount. For serious coin research, documented auction results and completed transactions are much more useful than unrealistic asking prices. The current market also shows how strongly grade affects value. Recent completed sale information includes 1974 Philadelphia nickels advertised as Gem BU or full steps examples selling at prices far below the famous auction record. That is a useful reminder that even when a coin is uncirculated and attractive, it may still be worth only a modest amount unless it reaches an unusually high certified grade with exceptional characteristics. For anyone searching through an old collection, inherited coins, a jar of change, or a box of Jefferson nickels, the best strategy is to separate ordinary examples from coins that deserve closer inspection. Do not clean the coin before examination. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the nickel carefully by its edges and inspect it under good lighting. A magnifying glass can help you examine the date, lettering, Jefferson's portrait, and the Monticello steps without putting unnecessary pressure on the surface. Pay particular attention to the reverse steps. If the steps appear weak, interrupted, worn, or blurry, the coin is unlikely to compete with the finest examples. If the steps are unusually sharp and continuous, the coin becomes much more interesting. You should then examine the rest of the coin for marks and imperfections. A spectacular reverse strike cannot completely overcome heavy contact marks or damage elsewhere on the coin. The difference between an uncirculated coin and a truly elite mint state coin is enormous. Mint state does not simply mean that the coin looks shiny. Professional grading evaluates the coin's preservation, strike, luster, surface quality, and overall appearance. As the grade rises, the number of surviving coins that can meet that standard generally becomes much smaller. That is why the population of very high-grade examples can matter so much to collectors. The 1974 issue is especially interesting because the normal Philadelphia version had no mint mark and was produced in large quantities. Large production does not prevent individual coins from becoming valuable in exceptional grades. What matters is the surviving population at the top of the grading scale. Millions of coins can be produced, but if only a very small number survive with outstanding strike quality and nearly flawless surfaces, those elite examples can become highly desirable. This is where the term full steps becomes extremely important. On the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, the steps of Monticello are examined for clarity and completeness. Collectors often pay premiums for coins with strong full steps detail because it demonstrates an unusually sharp strike and gives the coin a more impressive appearance. However, the exact designation depends on the grading service's standards, and not every coin described by a seller as full steps will receive the same professional designation. If your 1974 nickel looks promising, professional certification may be worth considering, but only after you assess whether the potential value justifies the grading cost. A common circulated nickel generally does not make economic sense to submit for professional grading. A potentially high-grade coin with outstanding full steps, strong luster, minimal marks, and excellent surfaces is a different situation. In that case, professional authentication and grading can provide much stronger evidence of its market value. One of the most important lessons from the 1974 Jefferson nickel is that rarity is not always obvious from the date. A coin can look ordinary but be scarce in a particular grade. Conversely, a coin can be several decades old and still be common in circulated condition. Age alone does not determine value. Collectors consider supply, demand, condition, strike quality, varieties, errors, eye appeal, and documented sales. If you are watching this video because you found a 1974 nickel without a mint mark, do not immediately assume that you have discovered a rare error. First, understand that the Philadelphia issue normally has no mint mark. Then inspect the condition. Look at Jefferson's cheek and jaw area for contact marks. Examine the fields for scratches. Check the lettering for sharpness. Turn the coin over and study Monticello. Then look closely at the steps. If the coin is worn, scratched, stained, or heavily circulated, its value will generally remain modest. If it is bright, original, sharply struck, and appears nearly untouched, then it deserves a much closer examination. And if the Monticello steps are unusually sharp and complete, the coin may be worth having evaluated by a professional grading service. The most exciting part of the market is that documented auction history proves that exceptional 1974 Jefferson nickels can bring serious money. The recorded PCGS auction result of $4,230 for an MS-67 full steps example is the strongest verified figure to remember when discussing the top end of this particular issue. But that price belongs to an exceptional certified specimen, not to every 1974 nickel found in pocket change. For collectors researching values in the 2026 market, this distinction between an ordinary coin and a top-grade certified coin is absolutely essential. Current reference and completed sale information continues to show a wide range of prices depending on condition. That means the most accurate answer to the question, how much is my 1974 Jefferson nickel worth, is not a single dollar amount. The correct answer depends on exactly what coin you have and how it grades. So before spending or selling your 1974 Jefferson nickel, take another close look. Check the mint mark area and remember that no mint mark is normal for Philadelphia. Check the date and make sure the coin is genuinely 1974. Examine both sides for errors or unusual characteristics. Inspect the surfaces under strong light. Then focus on Monticello and those important steps. If everything looks unusually sharp and well preserved, that is when your coin becomes genuinely interesting. And remember, the biggest mistake a new collector can make is confusing an internet claim with a verified market price. A seller can ask almost anything. A price guide can provide an estimate. But a documented auction result tells us what a collector actually paid under competitive market conditions. For this coin, the verified PCGS auction history gives us a real example of an elite MS-67 full steps 1974 Jefferson nickel selling for $4,230. The bottom line is simple. A 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is not automatically rare, because the Philadelphia Mint normally produced this issue without a mint mark. Most circulated examples are not valuable treasures. However, an exceptionally preserved specimen with a very high professional grade and outstanding full steps detail can be dramatically more valuable. That is the real story behind the 1974 Jefferson nickel and its place in the modern numismatic market. So if you have one of these Monticello nickels sitting in an old coin jar, collection, drawer, or inherited box, don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't judge it only by its face value. Take a careful look at the surfaces, the strike, and especially the Monticello steps. Your coin may be ordinary, or it may be an unusually high-grade survivor that deserves professional attention. The difference can be enormous. Coin number 5, if you have a 1981 Jefferson nickel with a small D mint mark, do not spend it before taking a closer look. This ordinary-looking 5-cent coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and while most 1981 D Jefferson nickels are common and worth only a small amount in circulated condition, exceptional examples in very high mint state grades can bring surprisingly strong prices in the numismatic market. In fact, auction records show that the finest certified examples can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, making condition one of the most important factors when determining whether your 1981 D nickel is simply worth 5 cents or deserves a much closer examination. The 1981 Jefferson nickel features the famous portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. On the reverse is Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, along with the words United States of America, 5 cents, and Monticello. The D mint mark identifies the Denver Mint. This is important because the mint mark alone does not automatically make the coin rare. The 1981 D issue was produced for circulation, so a normal worn example is generally not a high-dollar rarity. The real opportunity comes from finding an unusually well-preserved coin with exceptional strike quality and strong details. Now let's talk about condition, because this is where the story becomes much more interesting. A circulated 1981 D Jefferson nickel with scratches, contact marks, worn surfaces, and flattened details will normally have little premium over its face value. But an uncirculated example can be worth more, and a professionally graded coin in the upper mint state levels can become considerably more desirable to collectors. Coin World lists values for the 1981 D issue that rise with condition, while recent sales show that certified high-grade examples can command significantly more than an ordinary circulated nickel. One of the most important things to inspect is the reverse of the coin, especially the steps leading up to Monticello. Collectors often look for what is known as full steps, meaning the steps are exceptionally complete and clearly defined rather than being weak, merged, or interrupted by contact marks. This detail can make an enormous difference in the market for high-grade Jefferson nickels. A coin that looks brilliant at first glance may not qualify for a full steps designation if the steps are damaged or weak, while another coin with exceptionally sharp detail can attract serious collector attention. The auction history tells us just how dramatic this difference can be. Great Collections reports that a 1981 D Jefferson nickel-graded PCGS MS-66 sold for $1,819.12. Even more impressive, a 1981 D Jefferson nickel-graded PCGS MS-67 with full steps sold for $3,652.88. These are genuine examples of the premium that can exist for exceptional condition and strike quality. They should not be interpreted as the normal value of every 1981 D nickel, but they demonstrate why a superb specimen deserves careful examination. Recent market sales from 2026 also show a much broader range for certified examples. A PCGS MS-64 1981 D Jefferson nickel was reported sold for about $14.95, while other MS-65 examples changed hands for roughly $12 to $22, depending on certification and characteristics. Higher-grade full steps examples have sold for substantially more, including reported sales around $75, $85, and other amounts depending on grade and presentation. This demonstrates an important lesson for collectors. The phrase 1981 D. Jefferson nickel describes the date and mint, but it does not describe the complete market value. Grade, strike, preservation, certification, and eye appeal all matter. So if you have one of these nickels in your collection, what should you look for? Start with the date and confirm that it is actually 1981. Then turn the coin over and locate the D mint mark near Monticello. After that, examine the surfaces under good lighting. Look for original luster, minimal scratches, limited contact marks, and strong design details. Pay special attention to Jefferson's hair and facial features on the obverse, as well as the columns and steps of Monticello on the reverse. The cleaner and sharper the coin appears, the more interesting it becomes, but there is an important warning. Do not clean the coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may significantly reduce collector appeal. A coin that looks dirty but retains its natural original surface can be much more desirable than a coin that has been polished to look shiny. If you think you have an exceptional specimen, handling it carefully and having it evaluated by a reputable professional grading service may make more sense than attempting to improve its appearance yourself. Another point that collectors should understand is the difference between a high asking price and an actual sold price. Online listings can show extremely high numbers, but an asking price does not prove that a coin is worth that amount. Actual completed sales and auction results are much more useful because they show what buyers were really willing to pay. For the 1981 D. Jefferson nickel, documented sales range from modest amounts for ordinary certified examples to four-figure prices for exceptional high-grade pieces. This is why the claim that every 1981 D. Jefferson nickel is a rare and valuable coin would be misleading. Most examples are not worth thousands of dollars. The exciting part is that a very small number of outstanding coins can be dramatically more valuable because collectors compete for the finest grades and strongest strikes. In other words, rarity and condition can be more important than rarity by date alone. The word MS is also important when researching this coin. MS stands for mint state, which generally refers to coins that have not circulated and retain their original mint state characteristics. But MS65, MS66, and MS67 are not interchangeable. As the grade rises, the requirements become increasingly demanding, and tiny marks or strike weaknesses can separate one grade from another. When a coin also receives a full steps designation, the combination can become especially desirable among Jefferson nickel specialists. If you discover a 1981 D nickel that looks almost untouched, has brilliant original luster, very few marks, and exceptionally sharp Monticello steps, that is the moment to slow down and investigate further. Take clear photographs of both sides, avoid touching the surfaces unnecessarily, and compare the coin with certified auction examples. If it appears to be an unusually high-grade specimen, professional certification could potentially reveal whether it belongs in a much more valuable category. The biggest lesson from the 1981 D. Jefferson nickel market is simple. The date and D mint mark get your attention, but condition creates the real story. A normal circulated coin may be little more than a 5-cent piece, while a spectacular certified example can enter an entirely different level of the numismatic market. Documented auction results reaching into the thousands prove that extraordinary examples can be highly valuable, but those prices belong to exceptional coins, not ordinary pocket change specimens. So before you dismiss that old Jefferson nickel sitting in a jar, collection, drawer, or box of coins, turn it over and inspect Monticello. Check the D mint mark, study the surfaces, examine the steps, and look carefully at the overall strike and preservation. You might not have a $1,000 coin, but if your 1981 D. Jefferson nickel has extraordinary mint state quality and full steps detail, you could have something far more interesting than its 5-cent face value suggests. And remember, the most valuable coin is not necessarily the oldest coin. Sometimes the real opportunity is an ordinary-looking modern coin that survived decades in extraordinary condition. The 1981 D. Jefferson nickel is a perfect example of why serious collectors examine condition, strike, and documented sales before deciding what a coin is worth. If you find one with exceptional details, do not clean it, do not assume a random internet asking price is accurate, and do not spend it until you have investigated the coin properly. In the world of numismatics, one remarkable specimen can be worth dramatically more than thousands of ordinary examples.